NZXT Cam. Monitor your games while playing. To learn more about it, check out the description. Hey everyone, it is the Angry Honey Badger here, and it is in fact time for Badgers picks for the week of May 17th. We're going to see who's free this week and which 4 champions I'm going to recommend. Free this week, there's going to be Ari, Amumu, Brand, Graves, Hecarim, Leona, Shaco, Tarek, Tryndamere, and Varus. And for my first champion recommendation, I'm going to give it back over to Varus. Previously, I know I have recommended him. We actually have seen him, I want to say, fall off a little bit. Because it's true, he just hasn't been getting played as much. But actually we saw him again at MSI, and he had an okay showing. It wasn't great, it wasn't bad, but it was decent to say the least. But I still really like him. I like to play him mid still. That actually might be more of a gamble now, though, if that is where you like to play him or where you have been playing him. And the reason why is if there is a Zed in the game, or any other assassin for that part, he's going to have a little bit of a tougher time once that champion gets to a power point where they can one-shot him or one-shot combo him. Especially now that he can't cleanse a Zed ultimate, since that is no longer a thing. If you miss that in the patch notes, make sure you watch patch notes. But you got to be a little bit more careful about that. Besides that, though, I think he still brings an incredible amount of damage to team fights. More so in the poking phases of team fights before they really start, and that damage is still exponentially enormous. So he does tons of damage in that regard. The only other thing to be careful about if you do play him as like that mid 80 poke mana efficient crazy champion that we're used to, that as a standard attack build becomes difficult if you have to rely on standard attacking late, because you usually don't have massive crits. So it's for poke comps and for annihilating people you want to siege on. So that's where it's great. Try it out if you have not played it. My second champion recommendation for this week, gonna give that one over to another ADC. Yes, that's right, it's going over to Graves. Graves is still incredibly good. In fact, he might be even better than where he previously was. Let me explain. With the changes to his build path, more so because of the way crit works with Graves and the nerfs that came across a few items, but mostly just to Graves himself. Crit builds are even better on Graves, meaning that those tankier Juggernaut builds are not as good. Granted, they're still fine. They're not as strong as they were, but now that it's just pretty much dedicated that you want to do some type of a crit Graves build. I love playing him in the jungle currently. I think he can do okay in lane. Even in top and then in bot with the right support, but I like him the most in the jungle. He's got insanely good clear, and he doesn't really take much damage, and his ganks are actually not terrible. So that's where I like to play him. Pretty much go warrior into a phantom dancer. You start to get the amount of reload speed where you want it with that phantom dancer. You get some good damage too out of warrior to follow up with the phantom dancer, and you get that extra, dueling with the phantom dancer. So it actually makes for a pretty good combo right now, and from there you can take your build in a few different directions, whether you want to just keep going crit if you're ahead, or you can do some things like Death's Dance in the middle to still make him a pretty formidable champion that is quite good at farming the jungle and securing buffs. So try out Graves this week if you do not own him for some crazy reason. My third recommendation this week, I'm gonna give that one over to Brand. Brand is brand new. Okay, that's a lie. He's not brand new from the mage or mid-mage update, but I have seen him getting played a bit more, and I like what I'm seeing so far. He might not be the world's strongest champion that he used to be at like the beginning of the season when he was a little bit broken because his passive and his ult were doing weird things, I believe, but they fixed that. I do like the way his ultimate does prioritize now, and that is a good thing. It's seeking out what it really should be seeking out more so. But overall, I've always really liked Brand as a support after he kind of fell off in the mid after he was initially released. So down in the bot lane, I think he can be impactful, and I believe that's where I made my last guide for him, was as a support. Now, obviously, his kit's changed just slightly, but the most of it remains the same, or at least the techniques underneath it and what you're going for remains the same. But try out Brand this week, especially if you haven't tried him as a support. I think that's a good place to play him, and if you like him and you haven't played him there, that's a good spot to try him out. And for my final recommendation for this week, I'm going to give that one over to Hecarim. Now, Hecarim I haven't seen a ton of, but recently I've seen a little bit more of him, and the showings have been better than where he used to be. Obviously, at the very beginning of this season, we saw him a little bit in the top lane, and he was doing okay there, but over time, changes to the game and nerfs to him have kind of brought him into a mediocre state. Then there was a little bit of buffing back, and then tweaks to items have helped, I think, make him better, at least in the jungle for the time being. The other thing that also didn't really help Hecarim was sated jungling. Never really helped Hecarim. He wasn't a sated jungler, and contesting or fighting sated junglers, just not the greatest for him. Not terrible, but not great. So I think Hecarim's in a better spot now, but the big reasons why he got nerfed originally, and even another one kind of more recently, one of the big nerfs that's happened to TP in general and TP top laners, which is what he was, is when they nerfed the teleport cooldowns, and now recently when they've nerfed home guard. So now that home guard doesn't give you the initial burst of speed it does right at 20 minutes, it now scales upward through to 35 minutes. A teleporting Hecarim wouldn't be as powerful as previously, because he can't just buy home guard, but then they remove that and just made it a global, and then now that that's been nerfed, that play's been made weaker, which is why you don't see him typically in top lane anymore. So I think he will be back in the jungle because of those reasons. That's where I've seen him recently, but we'll have to keep an eye on him too in the future and see if he can be impactful with his crowd control that he has, because I do like how it works in a team fight. So if you don't own him, now would be a good week to try him out. Those are the 10 champions that are free this week. Those are the 4 I'm going to recommend. Obviously, there's other good champions in this rotation. Tarek's actually quite strong still, although he did get that small nerf on his range, and that actually kind of sorted him out for the most part. We'll see if they do more with him in the future. I assume they will, since he is still pretty fresh. Ahri's still actually a pretty good champion. I know she got a little bit of a nerf earlier in the season, but she's still quite good. Amumu's decent, no problems with him. I am actually surprised with the lack of Leona play, but now that we did see her in one game at MSI, maybe people will pick her up a little bit. I like the damage that she can help bring to her ADCs. Shaco, I have no positive feelings about that champion. Yeah, a good one can do some decent things, but if you have half a brain for the first 3 levels of the game, he basically falls off immediately. And Tryndamere is still in a mediocre state. Never has been anywhere near as good as he was back in Season 2, and honestly probably needs a full rework. So those are the champions that are free. Let me know who you're going to be playing down below in the comments. If there's a box around any of these champions' portraits, that means you can click it and it'll take you to some type of video for that champion. But besides that, I wish all of you the very best of luck this week on the Fields of Justice.